Okay, well, we do have only 13, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So I do not have, I'm just looking here to see if Nancy did not call me. Did anyone here or is anyone online supposed to do the invocation today?
Who was signed up for that?
I think it was Emerson.
Emerson, yeah.
I'm just looking at it. It is Emerson. Okay. Well, I don't see Emerson here. Yeah. I hate to take his thunder away, but
no, I'm hoping he'll be back on here shortly. Several people had joined with last week's link, and I had to bump everybody out. So for this,
okay.
So
but we can.
They were on the other link, so they should be back shortly.
I did that too.
Okay.
Well, you can't expect us to read the email clearly.
It's only in English.
That's the trouble.
It's always on the club calendar, unless I mess it up.
Yes, Renee, keep working on it.
It's a mess.
Oh, come on.
I forgot there was a video call, so I was like, oh, God.
Well, it looks like Michael has got a live picture behind him. So I see the trees are moving. Some of us don't have that.
Yeah, it's one of the preloaded backgrounds for me. So, so I hope no one has an issue with me taking it a little bit easy while I present with all of you.
Well, I hope you enjoy it. We would.
As long as you're not ordering up a Corona.
You have to share.
So I don't know if I can pass it from one side of the screen into someone else's screen. So not quite sure how we're able to do that, but we can figure it out. So
we had a little mix up. Tam, thanks for joining us. We just had some folks logging into last week's screen.
Yeah, that's where I was, waiting on another Zoom. Sorry about that.
Will, I'm just gonna make a quick ask. Did you shoot stuff out to them? Would Emerson know that he's okay? He knows. Okay.
It wouldn't let me join last week's because I tried.
So you need to keep trying, apparently. While we're waiting, I'll just go ahead and move. I'm going to move to one step first. Carol, any updates on any health of anyone in the club? Carol, you're muted.
Yeah. Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Someone may have more current information on Larry Biggis than I do. My information is about 24 hours old. He's in bad shape. He was moved to ICU at St. Luke's, not because he was getting super critical, but because they needed to put him on an Airvo machine to help with the breathing. His breathing is still very labored in spite of the fact that they've assaulted him with all this new medications. And the pulmonary unit was full. So they had a bed in the ICU. They could get one of those machines to the ICU. They moved him over there. He had an appetite. Ruth brought in some little, kind of a quasi Thanksgiving dinner, and he ate most of it. So, I think that's a good sign. And he has been answering some email and some text messages, but there's no doubt that he's in pretty bad shape. So I'll keep an eye on that. Between Ruth and Facebook, I'm getting really good updates. The big concern, I'm sure, for Larry is that this is, today's the big launch of the Christmas Bureau's Christmas shop, and he's not there to direct the traffic, and he has some pretty capable volunteers, but it's not quite the same, as we know. So if you can help out with that, jump on the Christmas Bureau's website. There's several roles that are available for people to fill. Ruth got it first. and she didn't get as critical a case. Lost taste, lost smell, had some respiratory complications for a few days, but was able to treat it at home successfully. So, and her sister has it, who's a teacher in the Olathe School District. So I kind of, when it hits a family, sometimes it goes through the family. Scott Robison, who is not on the call today, I didn't see him. And I know he's working from home a little bit, but he and his wife both tested positive. So far, their symptoms are minor, but I'll keep a line out with Scott as well. And if you hear of anybody else, let me know. In lieu of flowers right now, flowers seem lovely when somebody's recuperating, but I think the more practical thing to do is to send a fabulous box of home delivered gourmet soup. And it comes with, I don't know, bread, cookies, whatever you can choose. You can duck around low salt diets and that kind of thing. So I'll get that ordered for the Bigguses today. We don't have an account with them. I'll send my bill to whoever and we'll work it out.
That sounds great. I see Emerson's on. Emerson, you're about up. So why don't we go ahead and start off with the invocation and then the pledge, and then we'll finish up the intro that we normally have, and I've got one more person to talk about. So
Very well. Thank you very much. At our Thanksgiving meal, I was asked to read the Proclamation of Thanksgiving by Abraham Lincoln, and I did so. It's very long, but I thought there was one section that would be good for our invocation today. The thing that caught my eye, and if you haven't read this for a while, I would recommend it. The date of the proclamation is October 3rd, 1863. And if you thought 2020 was a bad year, and for many people it has been, 1863 was a bad year for the nation. So it really caught my eye that at this point in history, this proclamation would be written. And it's very interesting. The last part of it I'll read for our invocation. I do therefore invite my fellow citizens in every part of the United States, and also those who are at sea and those who are sojourning in foreign lands, to set apart and observe the last Thursday of November next as a day of thanksgiving and praise to our beneficent Father who dwelleth in the heavens. And I recommend to them that while offering up the ascriptions justly due to him for such singular deliverances and blessings, they do also with humble penitence for our national perverseness and disobedience, commend to his tender care all those who have become widows, orphans, mourners, or sufferers in the lamentable civil strife in which we are unavoidably engaged, and fervently implore the interposition of the almighty hand to heal the wounds of the nation and to restore it as soon as may be consistent with the divine purposes to full enjoyment of peace, harmony, tranquility, and union. May it be so for our time also.
Thank you. Now the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As we get ready to move on, do we have any guests with us? We thought there might be one present, but I don't think that he has appeared or showed up. So that's okay. Well, thank you all for being here. We have at this point 26 attending, which is a great number. I also wanted to let you know, this just came up to me just literally 30 minutes ago, that you all, many of you, most of you know who Ronnie Metzger is. He spoke to our club before, and he came down with COVID back on like the 3rd of November. And then the 20th, Susan came down with it. And Susan is a club member. And Ronnie has had some health issues. He was high risk. He got over it very quickly, and it was like a non-event for him. I mean, it was bad, but it wasn't bad. Susan was not able to walk for several days. She's getting down the hall right now using the wall. She's extraordinarily weak, but she's not had to go to the hospital. So just keep them aware. She just said, nobody, she goes, this is an evil thing. So, anyone who's experienced it knows it's not a fun ailment. So if there's any others in the club, we sure want to keep them in mind. Susan has a good family right here around them. They don't need any food or anything like that. So just wanted to let you know. Okay, do we have any committee comments, discussions, anything that's going on, anything new? We always will go to David here before long, but anything from the foundation? David, take it away.
I don't have anything new. Connected with refugee folks, and we have an interested party in the Western Kansas City Rotary Club to be their sponsor. So we have scheduled for December 6th or 8th. Don't have anything new on the Youth Foreign Exchange interviews. They should be happening in early December. That's it for me.
That's good. As you can see, sometimes the best laid plans for getting all the videos up. Will, can you give a reminder where all the connection points are? Because I think we had several that were logging into the last week's meeting. So the connection points are on the eSpoke, they're on the calendar.
Yep.
Is that any?
Nope.
And then,
yeah, they'll always be on the club calendar. So.
Okay, so that means you can just get to the club calendar and hit it, and you'll be there for the right week at the right time. Not to throw them under the bus, but if you really can't find it, you can always email Will. And Will's like, no, that's just why we're doing this. So I'm gonna have to have everybody do that. But please watch those, and just I know it's that's probably the biggest challenge that we have here, but it's all working out well. Michael, I just wanted to welcome you. You're here. We'll do an introduction in a few minutes. What we're going to do is we'll break out into small groups. And, I was sitting there thinking, what would we talk about on the day after Thanksgiving? Well, we'd all talk about Thanksgiving and the family that came in and what was new, different, and everything. So that's what we're going to do. We are really trying to get this, make the club as real as it used to be, people talking. So Will Gladhart is our administrator of the Zoom meetings, and he will break us out, and then we'll just everybody just talk about their Thanksgiving, what was different, what was the same, what was good. There should be not much bad about it, but unfortunately there may be some of that, and if somebody needs to share that, let them go ahead and do that. But Will, if you'd break us out, and we'll just kind of talk about our weekend and all that went on. Yes, I think so. It looks like I was muted there. I see 29. We had 30 at one point, so maybe somebody dropped off. That's okay. Well, we're going to get started here with our guest speaker today. That's Michael Kelly. And Michael, wave so everyone can see you there. There we go. Michael is the policy manager for the BikeWalkKC, where he advocates for policies, plans, and projects that improve the built environment for people who walk, cycle, roll, and use transit. In 2020, Michael was honored with the Emerging Leader of the Year award by the League of American Bicyclists. So rather impressive. He earned his master's from the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and his BA from Kansas State University. In addition, in addition to his work with BikeWalkKC, he serves on the board of directors for the Interurban Art House and is a member of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee of Kansas City, Missouri. Michael, if you would just take it away. You're on mute for right now. There we go. And we'll just let you run with it.
All righty. Well, thank you very much. And thank you, William. I was just about to bring that part up. So I'm just going to be talking a little bit, giving an update on active transportation developments in Johnson County. William, would you advance to the next slide? And just again, in case anyone is curious, my name is Michael Kelly and I'm the policy manager. That is my email address. And if you're interested in following us on social media, we're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram for anyone who's interested. Next slide. Okay, so what I'll be talking about today is I'll be giving a brief background on BikeWalkKC, talking about some of the policy updates in Johnson County, some of the planning and project developments that are going on, and I will finish my presentation and open it up to questions after talking about some of our upcoming events. So next slide. So when we talk about BikeWalkKC, again, what we're doing as an organization is working to redefine our streets as places for people to build a culture of active living. Next slide. So what exactly does BikeWalkKC do? And before anyone asks, I don't know exactly what a bike walk is, but I do know what a BikeWalkKC is. So BikeWalkKC does the 4 things that you see up here, and let me talk about each of these in a little bit more detail. With regards to advocacy, as Chris had mentioned earlier, we are the advocacy organization for cyclists, pedestrians, and transit users in the Kansas City Metro. We advocate for policies, plans, and projects that will improve the built environment and create a safer, more reliable transportation system for those users in cities throughout the Metro. We're also involved with education, and on this front, BikeWalkKC has one of the largest education programs of its kind in the country. We work to teach children and adults how to ride and walk safely, maintain their bikes, and more. In Johnson County, a large portion of that work has been conducted within the Shawnee Mission School District, but we also partner with city leaders like Mission and entities like the Johnson County Library. With regards to community planning, we also have a community planner on staff, which is a little bit unique for an organization like ours. And they work to provide technical assistance to municipalities and other stakeholders working on planning and projects that will bring those important changes to the built environment, kind of our way to work to make sure we're informing and influencing the changes at as many points as we can. And finally, we run the local bike share program. So we have rolled out electric assist bikes, which I'll talk about a little bit more, that give riders a boost, and we are working to extend those offerings in other parts of the region in the near future. So let's go to the next slide. So I want to begin the discussion with Johnson County by talking about some of the policy updates and developments that are going on here. Next slide. So let's start by talking about Westwood and discussing their recent adoption of a complete streets policy, which is something that we're very excited about. So for those who don't know, complete streets are designed to support the needs and uses of all road users, including pedestrians, bicyclists, transit users, motorists, and people of all ages and abilities. BikeWalkKC worked with the National Complete Streets Coalition to develop a model ordinance template for communities to use, and Westwood was one of the first communities in the Metro to use it. It's a strong policy. The significance of this is that with this adoption in Westwood, the city now has arguably the strongest complete streets policy in Johnson County. A number of other communities have adopted resolutions which state support for the concept, including Overland Park, but it is our hope that Westwood's success will prompt these communities to pursue ordinances which more explicitly define how complete streets can come to their respective transportation systems. And the most immediate impact of this policy change will likely be on the 47th Street project that Westwood is working on at the moment. The ordinance pushes the city to consider ways to more effectively support all modes of transportation rather than driving exclusively. And this will manifest itself along 47th Street in the form of improved crosswalks and bike lanes, at least initially. This will also set the tone for future improvements as opportunities arise. William, can we go to the next slide? So I also wanted to talk about the Environmental Advisory Council. So we have had recent conversations with some of the key community stakeholders in Overland Park, including this group and Councilman Healy, who's on the call, primarily around ways to improve active transportation. Some of these discussions have included the following: a new multimodal committee. So while the Environmental Advisory Committee has been the main entity leading the push for greater multimodal considerations in Overland Park, a specific committee focused on multimodal transportation issues may be a useful alternative. The benefits of such a move are twofold. First, it creates a dedicated space for citizens to identify and propose ways to improve biking and walking in Overland Park. And second, it removes that burden from the Environmental Advisory Council. Additionally, we talked about the opportunity to make a greater push to develop and support what are known as bike-friendly businesses in Overland Park. So this program, which is run by the League of American Bicyclists, assesses how much a given business supports active transportation and provides feedback on ways to be better in that realm. Graded from a bronze to platinum scale, Overland Park currently has one bike-friendly business, the REI, located on 135th, which has a silver ranking. Obviously, BikeWalkKC wants to practice what we preach, so we have gotten the certification as well, and we are a platinum level friendly, bike-friendly business. Finally, updating the Complete Streets legislation. So another matter that we discussed briefly was revisiting and potentially updating the Complete Streets legislation for the city. For reference, Overland Park adopted a resolution which primarily endorses the idea of complete streets, but doesn't go as far in terms of helping to make it a reality. So the National Complete Streets Coalition that I mentioned earlier graded the resolution and gave it a less than favorable score based on its policy guidelines and criteria. The key suggestion we made to this was for the city to update the resolution to an ordinance in line with the aforementioned standards. This approach is something that has precedent, as it was done by Casey Moe in 2017, earlier this month in KCK, and is currently being considered in Roland Park. Next slide. So now I want to shift gears a little bit, no pun intended, and talk a little bit about some of the planning and project opportunities that are going on in Johnson County as well. Next slide. So like many folks, we've been encouraged by the launch of the IKE transportation program, in part because of increased opportunities to build upon existing bike ped elements across the state. They manifest themselves in a number of ways, including dedicated funds available, greater planning opportunities, and, as I'll discuss in just a second, projects like 91st Street. So beginning with dedicated funds, the IKE program constitutes KDOT's responsibility of dispersing about $7.5 million annually from the Federal Transportation Alternatives Program, or TAP. TAP is the primary vehicle, again, no pun intended, through which the federal government funds projects to increase and improve multimodality throughout the state. Additionally, the state of Kansas now has a dedicated set aside of about $2 million for multimodal funding specifically. Now, while this may not sound like much, it is a significant start and can lead to projects that more effectively align with a host of local, county, and state priorities through transportation, such as healthier residents and stronger economies. With regard to greater planning opportunities, the increased funding means that we can do more. This includes current work on the Kansas Active Transportation Plan, as well as a portion of the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. This is important because it can not only heighten the need to invest in greater infrastructure for walking and biking, but also because it could inform and expedite other necessary plan updates, such as the Kansas Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan, which has not been updated since 1995. So an example of what this means for a place like Johnson County and Overland Park in particular is the 91st Street Trail project recently approved by KDOT. The city was able to pay for this through a combination of their own funds as well as cost share and transportation alternative program funds through KDOT. It will result in a shared use path from about Lowell to Knoll and is expected to be started and completed in 2021. Next slide. So the other major project happening in Johnson County that we're excited about is the expansion of bike share. Most of you have probably seen our classic pedal bikes in some of the area parks, but we recently took the next step and launched an electric bike fleet in Lenexa. So these electric bikes are the first of their kind in Johnson County. They are pedal assist, meaning that in order for them to work, in order to activate the motor, you have to pedal the bike. The top speed on these bikes is about 20 miles an hour. And as we've seen elsewhere, these bikes are great for getting up hills and going further than you would on a classic pedal bike. I can attest to this personally because I ride them along the trolley track trail pretty frequently. It's great. The expansion itself complements existing bike share in the region. Beyond the increased cooperation between the likes of the Johnson County Parks and Recreation Department and the city of Lenexa, this effort provides a blueprint on how bike share can work in other communities in Johnson County, including Overland Park. This is all made simpler by the fact that the bikes, at least up to this point, are operating under the same system as KCMO, which is a partnership between city officials, BikeWalkKC, and Drop Mobility. So the dockless bike share additionally frees up space and makes it a little bit easier to do over the long term. So what you're seeing here on the screen is actually our bike share director working to set up the new e-bikes. So something else that I wanted to note, and I found out about this morning, is that under the current contract agreement between Lenexa, Johnson County Parks and Rec, and BikeWalkKC, these bikes are actually going offline tomorrow and will be out of service until March. That's only the case in Johnson County. If you go across state lines into Missouri, you'll still be able to access them. So if we could go on to the next slide. So before I hand it over to questions, I just wanted to highlight some of our upcoming events. Next slide. So despite most in-person events being canceled, we are still committed to bringing people together online or in person with lots of breathing room. Our education team has also done some reimagining from our typical in-person offerings, and we're ready to bring our classes to you. So the photo you're seeing here is of Academy Lafayette Girl Scouts. David, I'll answer your question in just a sec. This is from Academy Lafayette Girl Scout Troop from the Oak Street campus in KCMO, who took our bicycle skills and safety class and also got help learning how to evaluate neighborhoods for walking safety. We've worked with scout troops like this, homeschool groups, and we're available to work with more families and communities. I also wanted to highlight our community dashboard, and if time allows, I can actually show you what it looks like a little bit more, where you can find new trails and projects, as well as a host of interesting facts and data about active transportation in the region. Whether it be access and equity, mobility trends, or something else, we're happy to partner with people like the folks at My Sidewalk on this new and exciting venture. So yes, we can switch to questions and I can begin to answer them for folks. So let's see what we have here. Okay, so the first question from David Stallings, let me see, is what brand of e-bike did this program purchase? So the brand of e-bike are Drop bikes. So Drop is actually the name of the manufacturer and the people who run the technology that allows it to be dockless. So to explain it all a little bit more, the way that dockless is different from typical bike share is that with typical bike share, you have a kiosk of sorts where you take a bike out, you ride it, and then you have to return it to that kiosk or another kiosk within the system. With dockless, all that goes away. And so what you're then able to do is basically use an app to identify all of the places in a given community where you would typically be able to lock up a bike. So this would be bike racks. You can lock it up with a stop sign, a telephone pole. The main thing that makes all of this work is that it has to be out of the right of way. So if you take the bike out, you ride it, and you just decide I want to stop in the middle of the sidewalk, you will not be able to finish the ride. So we specifically wanted to take that step to ensure that we weren't blocking people who may be walking on a sidewalk or who may have limited mobility. With regards to how are the e-bike batteries recharged? So what happens is we have a charging apparatus in our bike shop, in our office in Kansas City, where we will gather the bikes, hook them up, let them charge, and reinstall them with the bikes before we redeploy them. So typically we're gathering all of the e-bikes at sundown, taking them back to the shop, making sure they're plugged in, putting them in the morning, and then redeploying them. So are there any additional questions at the moment?
This is Dave White. I served on the Overland Park City Council for a number of years, and we were the ones that first considered the bike lanes and things like that. And I know it was somewhat controversial at the time. I'm very familiar with use of bikes in Europe, and they're used as a form of commuting as opposed to recreational. We're still, I think it's still in the recreational mode here in Kansas City. What do you predict about as far as being able to use it to commute to work? I mean, we've got a lot of distance here, which is not typical in Europe. And so that seems like a real challenge.
Yeah. And being an occasional bike commuter myself, I can definitely attest that Kansas City as a region has a ways to go before we're with the likes of Spain, England, or the gold standard, the Dutch. What I will say is that especially in a place like Johnson County, and this is true for most of the municipalities there, not just Overland Park, is that there has been a lot of investment and a lot of work done with trails among parks, and that's great. But what I think is going to need to happen in order to really make bike commuting a more viable option is the introduction and development of more protected on-street facilities. So Councilman White, you're right that there has been a very robust effort to develop more bike lanes on street, but a lot of those are just striped bike lanes, which isn't necessarily bad, but it might be a little bit more intimidating for those new riders who may see the benefit of it, but don't necessarily feel confident enough to ride with just a lane. So if I could just, and this is just for my own interest, if you consider yourself in that category of like you think that it is something that could be beneficial, but you would want something a little bit more than paint, would you mind raising your hand for me? Okay, so yeah. So what I would suggest and what we're beginning to see a little bit more in places like Kansas City is the introduction of more protected infrastructure where there is flex post, parking that is used as a barrier to separate folks, as an opportunity to create more of those protected facilities. So if you look at a place like Armour Boulevard or Armour Road in North Kansas City, that's a parking protected facility. And we're also really excited about the Gillum cycle track. So that is another example where we've put in flex posts or bollards to kind of physically separate cyclists from drivers. And it has been, for the most part, pretty well received. There's still work that needs to be done with it, but that is an example of what I think the type of facility is going to need to be put in more in a place like Overland Park to really begin to jumpstart some of that increased bike commuting.
Michael, this is Chris.
Yes.
You know, when you look at other cities, I went to Poland last year, and in India. India is just a different bird, so we can't really talk about that. But, you know, in Europe, you know, it seems like most of those cities do end up with a more separate path for cyclists and get them off the roadways. I know in some places in Italy they don't, and it's a real problem. It can cause huge congestion. Isn't the bike paths that they share on the roadway themselves more of a segue until people get used to it and start building it up so that we can actually handle the infrastructure expense and people are willing to absorb that?
I mean, we can look at it that way, but I would also caution against the idea that it is something that will lead to more congestion, because that has been something that has been used to try to stop projects in the past. And when we've done the research and look back at it, we find that it actually makes the street safer for everyone. So I'll give you an example. So referring again to Armour Road in North Kansas City, they took a look at a number of factors after the project had gone in. And one of those things was how it impacted traffic flow. And what they found is that it had a very minimal impact on how quickly a car could get through. I think it was about 30 seconds added on to someone's drive going from one portion of it to another. So I think that something that we as a collective have to do is really try to move away from this idea that it's going to be an inconvenience for drivers, because that inconvenience is safety for someone else. It is a minor thing, it is a minor trade-off, but it is something that can really be beneficial for everyone if we're willing to make that small sacrifice on behalf of drivers.
Just to add to that, I think it's a great thing just because we've gone through a generation and a half of people not hardly knowing what the rules of the road are for bicycles. And now we're having to re-educate and get people, even drivers that never ride a bike, they need to be re-educated on that. And I think that leads to one of Janae Hanslick's, her question.
Yes. So Commissioner Hanslick, our education staff do offer classes and training where we explicitly explain the rules of the road. And so one of the things that there is constant confusion about is where cyclists are allowed to be when it comes to streets and everything. The rule in both Kansas and Missouri is that cyclists are allowed to use the road, and they are encouraged to take up the lane. The reason why they are encouraged to be in the middle of the lane rather than over to the side is for visibility. So you're much more likely to see someone, to slow down and to carefully pass them if they're in the middle of a lane versus if they're closer to the curb. So as much as we can, we do want people obviously to be safe, but the other part of that is people, especially drivers, have to understand their responsibility in terms of sharing the road with those vulnerable road users.
Hello, Michael. This is Wayne Bird. Back in the mid-1990s, Overland Park was the very first community in the U.S. to be designated by LAB as a bicycle-friendly community. Mm-hmm. We no longer enjoy that designation. Can you tell the group a little bit about the bicycle-friendly community program and how one qualifies, and also perhaps expand your comments to bicycle-friendly businesses and bicycle-friendly universities? Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question, Wayne. So the short version is that the bicycle-friendly community program is the league's way of identifying what a city or what a community is doing right with regards to biking and walking in their community and ways that they can improve it. So these would be things such as Do you have a network of on-street facilities? Do you have policies that encourage bike ridership? How do you educate folks about new projects, rules of the road, things of that nature? And so what has happened is that the way that it works is a community can apply for the program, and folks from the league will come, ask a number of questions, do a little bit of research to kind of get an understanding of everything for their own criteria, and will eventually assign a grade to the community. That grade not only says this is what you're doing right, but it goes a step further and says these are the things that a place like Overland Park can do to get their grade up to a silver, up to a gold, potentially up to a platinum. And the way that it also ties in with bicycle-friendly businesses, to Wayne's point, is that a lot of what enables bike-friendly businesses to flourish comes from the support they get from the community. So if a bicycle-friendly business is wanting to encourage people to ride more, what is a community doing to support that? Does a community have development standards that encourage things like including bike parking or shower facilities? Does the community have things like a complete streets policy, and how strong is that? Does the community actively encourage or inform businesses about this and the benefits that can come from investing in that designation, such as being more socially mindful or sustainable, because biking is a form of transportation that is significantly greener. So all of these are things that a community can benefit from, better understand themselves about, and ultimately help to improve aspects of their economic development through on something like improving biking through the League of American Bicyclist Bike-Friendly Community Program. So Stan had a question. So do you have statistics on bike crash injuries? Okay, so for the first question, the best place to get statistics, we don't have them ourselves, but the best place to get statistics would be either through the Overland Park Police Department or through the Mid-American Regional Council. I will say that there has been an increase in crashes because of the pandemic, and part of that is because while there are fewer cars on the road, many of the cars that are left have been going faster, and that has led to unfortunate increases in crashes. And I try to use the word crash and not accident, and I'm happy to talk about that a little bit more if time allows. But to your second question, if a bunch of cyclists all come to a stop sign, it probably is better for all of them to go through at the same time, simply because of that kind of strength in numbers. It's better for all of them to be seen as they proceed than for one person to go at a time and kind of hopscotch that way. So.
Well, Michael, I'm going to probably call the questions at this point. I just had one more thing for you. On your website, do you have a rules of the road booklet, or where do we go if somebody wants to see that, let's say show our grandkids or whatever, what they need to know for the Kansas City metro area of what the rules.
So besides Councilman Healy's very informational link, I think the easiest thing to do would just be send an email to our education folks, and they would be more than happy to provide that information for you and point you in the direction of places to go. I will also mention our education director, Laura Steele, is a councilwoman with Westwood. So she is someone who takes this very seriously and would be more than happy to answer any questions about education and rules of the road.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. I think this is greatly enjoyed. We have a lot of cyclists in our club, and just everybody, let's give Michael the old virtual applause. We are going to call this meeting. Before I do, I want to share with you all, we have a slate of officers for next year that's kind of going through the board right now. And once we get everyone's consent on that, we will place it out there for you all. And Will's going to be helping with this with some surveys. And we want to make sure we have the vote done by our next meeting, which is December 14th, our next and only meeting in the month of December, because of the way the holidays fall. And so if you all would make sure that you vote on those, that would be great. Appreciate that greatly. We have to turn this in to RI in January, and these positions, of course, will not start until July 1st, but that's just the way that works. So anyway, you all will be seeing those. And if you come to the next meeting and you haven't done anything, that's okay. We'll have a way to respond at that meeting. Correct, Will? We're waiting for him to unmute. But anyway. Okay, so of the things we think, say, and do, this is the four-way test. We want to, okay, here we go. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned?
Will it build
Will
goodwill?
it build
Better friendships? Will it be
beneficial
to all concerned?
Well, thank you all. You have a safe week, 2 weeks, and we'll see the board next week. But we do have a board meeting next Monday. Anyone can log in on that. But other than that, you guys be safe. Take care. Bye-bye.